Okay, gotta replace the radiator on this '06 Corolla today. This should be the same for '03 to '08, whatever, same body style, whether it's automatic, stick, or XRS, it's going to be relatively the same. It's just the radiator slightly different. So the first thing I'm going to do is unbolt this pipe here, and we need to get these cooling fans pulled off of the radiator. And if it looks a little funky, it shouldn't be that close. This is why I'm having to replace it, is because we hit a rather large animal. Okay, that's unbolted. I just like to put the shit back where it goes so I don't lose it. You need to pop this hose off. It's easier to leave it attached. This one just ends right there, so you can leave that be. You should have bolts right there and down there. There's none on this side. You can see there's one. And then, at the bottom down there is another one. These can be quite rusty. You really want to spray it with like PB Blast or something like that to loosen it up. And good luck getting them out. Usually on the inside of this plastic here, there's a square nut. That's what this bolts into. And these get so tight and rusty that that nut will oftentimes spin with the bolt, and it strips out the plastic housing and you never get it out. So what you have to do is get a short flathead screwdriver and shove in through the side underneath of that square bolt so that it won't spin inside the plastic, so you can get the bolt out. Alright, well, the sun's being a real bitch while I'm trying to record, but there's your setup. You have to shove a screwdriver under it like that. You're going to want to hold on to this and push in about as hard as you can under that nut before you start turning on it with whatever to try and keep that nut from spinning out in the plastic. On a side note, those little nuts that are in the plastic are just sitting in there, so once you remove your bolt, they can and will fall out the side, so make sure you don't lose them. Alright, so now I just need to disconnect the coupler from the motor, and then we should be able to pull this thing out. It's going to be a little difficult for me because it's shoved in there from the impact. Alright, actually you're going to want to remove this pipe first because this is hitting it. You don't want to cut your pipe and cause a leak there. And for the moment I'm going to leave this attached because I think if I take this pipe off, I can just leave the wire attached and swing it up out of the way. So try that first. Get this pipe off of here. Alright, so not quite out of the way, but at least with popping that hose off and getting it up here, now I can easily unplug it. Especially these things are kind of impossible to get to with it down there. So I can unplug this and pull the wire off and then get it out of here. Oh, that's cool. So my cooling fan is all busted to hell. So now that needs replaced, because that's going to vibrate like hell when it kicks on. Plus it's not going to cool properly. So there's what happened to the radiator. So now I get this thing out of here. It would hook in there, and that's already busted in here. So you're gonna take these bolts out, and then it should just pull out. I got that one last hose right there. I don't think there's any plugs or anything. So it's just unbolting the mounts and pulling it out. Yay! I think it's dead. So there's an empty hole, except for my AC condenser. I'm gonna... God, Jesus, look at that. It's probably fucked. Well, I'm gonna try to bend it back. Don't know if it's leaking or not. I gotta get coolant back in this thing so I can run it and turn on the AC and see if it leaks. But my guess is it leaks. Look at it. Okay, I got it bent back enough for the radiator to fit it back in there. So those pins in the bottom of the radiator are just gonna go there and there. So let's get this thing hooked back in here, hook this pipe back up, tight top pipe back up, get the cooling fans back in, plugged in, everything bolted down, and then I gotta bleed the thing, add coolant, and get all the air out of the system so the car won't overheat. Okay, everything's back in. Fans hooked back up, lines hooked back up, bottom lines hooked back up, lines hooked up here. Got these back on. And that thing is too powerful because, whoopsie, broke that shit right off tightening it down. You may have to swap that square nut into your new one, but this one came with new nuts. So obviously swap your cap over. Now we just need to fill it with coolant. The most important thing is to fill this very slowly. You don't want to be like, because it creates bubbles. So you do yourself the biggest favor by filling this as slowly as possible. Nice little trickle down the side of the, really, whatever they're called, so that it just trickles down as slowly as possible, and it creates the least amount of air bubbles as possible, because you get a big ass air bubble stuck in there, then you risk overheating it, and it's going to be a bitch to get it out. Last time I did the radiator in this, I thought I got all the air out, got a mile down the road, and the car started to overheat. So the best trick I've learned is to take it slow and pour it as slowly as possible so you don't create any air bubbles. Alright, like I said, add it slowly. Try to keep it a steady stream. And then if you hear it start gurgling, which I was hearing it earlier, then you just stop until it finishes gurgling to let the air out. Alright, on a side note, this pipe is rather parallel, so I'm going to jack up the car so it tips back like that. So that'll help get some into the motor by jacking it up, and there'll be less air in the system that way. So I'm going to go ahead and lift it as high as I can to get the front end tip back, and then continue filling it. Alright, once it's full, leave the cap off. You're going to start it, and then as the car warms up, your thermostat should open and start letting coolant through the system. You want to get in and out of the car, off and on. Check for this to go down. It'll be gurgling, bubbling and shit. Top it off as it takes some. Stand back, be careful as it gets hot. It could explode up in your face, shooting bubbles of air out. And just go back and forth in the car. Keep an eye on the temperature. Make sure that it doesn't get too high. It's not uncommon for it to get too high. And then you'll need to shut it off and let the system bleed out some more air. Let it cool down, and then top it off and do it over and over and over again for a freaking hour. So I got the car tipped back, so hopefully we're not going to be dealing with it that long. Last time I did it, it took quite a while. So I said pour slow, and it's going to help you a lot. So I'm just going to sit in here, watch for the temperature to start climbing. Then I'll be going in and out of the car over and over, checking to see if it's gurgling up air and if it's taking any coolant down, which it should take some down as the thermostat opens. Coming back and forth, make sure it's not getting too hot or anything like that. Once I'm not getting any more air out of the system, turn it on and off a few times. Sometimes when you turn it off, then it'll start bubbling and shit, and then as soon as you turn it back on, it'll stop. It's just kind of process of elimination. So a few on and off cycles. Once I think I got all the air out, and if still nothing, then I'll put the cap on and we'll go for a short drive just around the house. Make sure it doesn't heat up. Don't want to be very far away in case there is still air in the system and it gets too hot. You don't want to, be stranded away from home, so don't go too far. So once you think you got it all out, just go take it for a short drive back and forth around the house. Make sure it doesn't heat up and you're good to go. See, it's overflowing. The air's trying to come up, so it's pushing coolant out of the way as the air comes up. That's normal. And you gotta stand back and be careful because it can shoot out at you. And once that thermostat opens, it should start going down some. See, you'll have air come out like that. Again, you shouldn't be this close in case it shoots out at you. Keep checking your gauges. It's just now starting to come up a little. Alright, so it's like 40-some degrees out, and I've been running for close to 10 minutes. Still the same shit. Flip the throttle. I might get an air bubble or two. It's not really going down yet. There's still air, see, it's still pushing it up. And I keep checking my temp. And it's just not really wanting to go above that. That's right about normal, but there's still air in the system. So it might be okay. But what I want to do is shut it off and see if some air comes out and start it back up a few times like I had discussed, and might get some of the air out, because right now it's still got air in it. Oh well, where are we at, man? As soon as I said that, I come out here and this is what I got. I don't think it's really, it's not flowing yet. There's still some, yeah, there's a bubble. Let's see, there's still air in it. There's one. There's the air bubble. Check my temp. A little higher. Shut it off, see what happens. Yep, see. Okay, I've shut it off a few times, on and off. After that first time I shut it off and all that air came out, nothing else has happened. It stayed down there. Hasn't moved at all. So I think that was the last bit of air that was trapped. So like I said, if you turn it on and off a few times, a lot of times you get air that will come out that will not come out while it's running. So hopefully that was it. I'm going to put a cap on, going to drive it around the house. And if it doesn't heat up, then it's good to go. And that'll be the end of the video. Temp's a little high. So we're going to still have some air in it. Getting it back to the driveway. Shut it off. Try to get some more air out. Oh, it's not. Let's see, it just dropped. Looks like it just worked some out on its own, because the system does self-ventilate some. Another telltale, I don't got hardly any heat. It's barely warm, so there's not a lot of coolant getting to the heater core, because there's still air. So we still got to work air out of this thing. Alright, so I gotta be careful because it's probably under pressure now. Ooh, yep, there it goes. There's all your air. Woo! See how it got frothy? It was like white, it's a bunch of air. Should be able to hear that. Bunch of air still coming out of that fucker. So we'll let it do its thing and then top it back off and then take it for a spin again. Ooh, that's hot. Yow. Okay, we'll just add it slow again until it's full. Again, if I hear gurgling, I'll stop. But the system's obviously mostly full by now, so most of the air should be at the top of the radiator, and now we're filling the void. Alright, so it's up to the top again, and try it again. And go start it and see what happens here. With the cap off, looks like there's still a little bit of air coming out. You can hear it bubbling a little bit. Guys, just Alright, well, when I started it took some down, so must still be air. Maybe not now, but well, let's cap it off and try it again. Alright, so it hasn't really moved from there. Got really hot heat now. It's almost hot enough to burn my hand. Should be close. Good to go. Set the temps right where it should be. It hasn't raised. I've driven farther already, about 3 or 4 times as far as I have. I'm going to keep driving around for a few minutes to make sure, but I believe it should be good to go now.